And now we're going to go and talk about data loss prevention and how you can better protect your data on your school domain. So when it comes to protecting data on your domain, the first thing you should, of course, do is set up appropriate sharing privileges. So thinking about, do all of your students need to be able to share externally? Should they be able to publish things on the web? And of course, for that, you can utilize trust rules to help set up appropriate sharing permissions about who can share with who on your network or outside of your domain. Now with DLP, so data loss prevention, that adds another level of being able to detect sensitive data within documents and then base sharing decisions on what data and content is in that document, in that Gmail message or chat message. Now, data loss prevention is in all editions of Google Workspace. So not just Education Plus or Standard, it's in Fundamentals and Teaching and Learning Upgrade as well. Before we get started on this, actually, out of interest, just using the emoji reactions at the bottom of your screen, how many people are already utilizing data loss prevention on your domain? Okay, a couple so far. Okay, not too many. Okay, hopefully you'll find this useful. Okay, a couple more.
Okay, a few more coming now.
Oh, nice. Good to hear. There's some people already utilizing this. Got to say, out of the security audits we do, I'd say 9 times out of 10, DLP hasn't been configured. So I think this can be a really quick win for you for helping really secure your sensitive information. And yeah, I'll take you through a demo in a second of how you can do this. So with DLP, it really helps cut down on unintentional data loss and also, of course, intentional data loss as well. And you can enforce different actions such as just warning a user that they might be about to share something which has got sensitive information in, or you can outright block the user from doing that. You can control this in Gmail with compliance rules, which we'll have a look at in a moment. And you can also apply data loss prevention rules to Google Chat and Google Drive. And after I've done those demos, we'll finish up and look at the investigation tool and security dashboard and look at how you can monitor those data loss prevention rules to see which documents are being detected and which rules are being triggered the most. So let me now share my admin console and we'll take a look at how to configure Gmail first of all. So in your admin console, if you go to Apps, Google Workspace and Gmail. Now, one of the options within Gmail, which I don't see used an awful lot, is under compliance. And within here, we've got various settings such as managing auto deletion, restricting delivery. But the one we're looking at today is called content compliance. And I've got a content compliance rule here, which I created earlier. And the purpose of this rule is to detect credit card information in a Gmail message and prevent that from being sent outside of a school domain. And we couldn't do it like this. So this is a rule I created earlier. It's got a title. I've chosen which messages I want to affect. So in this case, outbound messages, so messages leaving my school domain. If I wanted to, I could affect internal messages as well. But in this case, I'm just going to select outbound. And then we can set the criteria for messages we want to match. So let's have a look at this one first of all. In this case, I'm using a predefined content match. There's different types of matches here you can select from a simple match, just looking for a keyword. It can be an advanced content match, so looking at different message attributes such as the message body, header, sender, recipients. You can do a metadata match, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But in this case, I'm going to use a predefined content match. And that means I can select from this huge list of different types of content, which Google have got regular expressions already configured for to help us detect these things in messages. So what I've selected here is credit card number, and we're looking for one match in a message with a medium threshold there. So let's save that. And the other thing I'm going to match for this compliance rule is whether or not the user is using confidential mode in Gmail. So in this case, I'm using a metadata match. I'm looking at the Gmail confidential mode attribute. And I'm only going to apply this rule if they're not using confidential mode to send that sensitive data. And lastly, the last step here, I can then choose what I want to happen with that message. So if a message matches these rules, I can either modify that message. That would enable me to add another recipient or redirect that message. I could reject the message, which is what I'm going to do in this case, or I could send that message to one of our admin quarantines and keep the message in there. In this case, I just want to reject that message, and I've typed in a message back to the user here just to say that the message has been rejected because it contains a credit card number, and also consider using confidential mode to send sensitive information on Gmail if that's really something I need to share via email. Cool, so that's all now configured. So let me just swap over to my Gmail tab and we'll try out this rule and check it's still working. So I've created a message earlier here. It's got I should point out, this is not a real credit card number. This is just a fake number I made up. And now I'm going to hit send. And we can check our sent items. So here is the message. And in a moment, we should see a rejection message come back. So here we go. Oh no, that's the one from earlier. Oh, here it is. Just come in. So message blocked, and we've got our custom rejection message there informing the user about why that message was rejected from being sent outside of school, and a learning opportunity for them about using confidential mode in Gmail, which is a much better way of securing that information in a Gmail message. If you've never come across confidential mode before, essentially, a bit like in a Mission Impossible film, you can make that message self-destruct after a day or a week, or request they input an extra verification code sent via SMS as well, if you want to. Okay, so that's Gmail. Let's go back to the admin console now and look at how you can configure DLP, but for Google Drive and Chat. So that's available under Security, Access and Data Control, and Data Protection. And from here, we can manage rules and detectors, which I'll talk both about in a moment. Just want to also point out there's another way of getting to this page. You can also see all of the rules configured for your domain by going to Rules and then adding a filter. As you'll see, quite a few rules here. Select Type and select Data Protection, and that will also list any data protection rules you've already configured. So first of all, let's look at how to create a brand new rule from scratch. Google make this really easy from this page because they've got some predefined templates here. These templates cover things like financial information sharing, health information sharing, personally identifiable information, and so on, customized for different regions. Let's select financial information in this case. When we create a new rule, this applies to DLP rules or any other type of rule on Google Workspace. The first thing we need to do is select who we want it to apply to. This could be the entire domain, it could be a particular OU or group of users. In this case, I'm just going to select the entire domain. We can then select what apps we want to apply this rule to. So in here, we can select Drive and chat messages and files uploaded to chat as well. And then these other conditions, so these are the things we're going to look for matches on in those chat messages or files being shared. So with the template, Google have listed some automatically for us. So here we've got credit card numbers, bank account numbers, SWIFT number, and so on. For each of these, you can set a threshold and the number of matches or number of occurrences you want to match when you trigger that rule on your domain. We'll have a closer look at some of these in a bit more in detail in just a moment. But let's just have a quick overview of how to configure this rule. So on the next page, then we can configure what we want to happen when a match occurs. So for Google Chat, we can either warn a user that that chat message or file that got uploaded to chat has some sensitive information in it. We can block that message, or we can just use order only, which is really useful when you're first configuring that rule and you just want to see how it's going to perform and see what potential disruption that could cause or what potential impact of that is as well, to help you get those thresholds right, get a right balance. Under Google Drive, here you can either block external sharing, you can warn the user on external sharing, so warn them about to share something sensitive. You can disable download, print, and copy, or you can apply a drive label. I'll talk about drive labels in a minute. Again, you can customize the message the user receives from here as well if you wish. And you can also send these alerts to the alert center. So that enables you to centrally track those alerts as well. And just like any other rule, you can also add email recipients in as well. Once you've configured all that, let's hit continue. We can just confirm the rule details here, and then we can set this to active and hit create. So that's an example using one of Google's predefined templates. If we go back to the data protection screen, you may have noticed we've got this interface as well for managing detectors. This can be useful if you want to import your own keywords which you want to match data on your domain. So here I've uploaded a few examples. So the first one here is just a simple word list of naughty words we don't want our users using in their docs. As you can see, it supports multiple languages. We've also got another one here for health information. So these are just a list of keywords I imported for different medical conditions, which we want to make sure that school staff, maybe the school nurse, isn't sharing more widely than they should be. And another example here is you can also import regular expressions. So this is just a really simple one for a few self-harm keywords. There are much wider word lists you can get from the internet, which you could import into here as well, or maybe take from your existing content filter and also put into here. But just an example of how you can configure those. And once you've established some detectors, then you can use those in your own rules. So if we go back into manage rules, so for instance, I've got one here called alert on self-harm, and under conditions, rather than using one of Google's predefined content matches, I'm using a regular expression, and it's listing one which I've imported earlier. We can do the same thing on a word list as well. So if we go back to our rules page and let's look at the health information word list. Again, go to content. So in this case, I'm looking at all content within the drive item. We're matching words from our word list, which is really easy to add to this. It's just a simple list of words split up by commas, which we've copy and pasted into here. And we're asking it to match any word from that list. Let's discard that. So that's how you'd apply your own custom bespoke list of words. Now with this rule, we're doing something a little bit different. So rather than blocking that item from being shared, this rule is actually applying something called a drive label. So drive labels is something I mentioned briefly earlier. So this is a feature which is only available in Education Standard and Plus. And essentially drive labels enable you to label items about their level of confidentiality. Now, it's probably best to illustrate this if I share how to configure this on Drive and what that actually looks like for a user. So if I go into my Drive config now, go to Drive and Docs, and in Drive and Docs, if you're on Education Standard or Plus, you'll have this tab called Labels. And from here, you can turn on labels for your organization, and you can also manage your labels. And if I click on that and let's share this tab instead, this is the labels management screen. And I've already created one called file sensitivity. And this has several levels here, restricted, confidential, internal, and public. And labels work really well with DLP. So you can use labels in two ways with DLP. You can use DLP to automatically apply the labels for you, which I'll show you in a moment. But you can also use labels to restrict how items are shared. So if I jump back to this screen and we go back to our data loss prevention rules. So let's go back to security and data protection. And let's go and have a look at the health information rule again. And so we're using this rule to apply a label for restricted. So if any content appears within a Google Sheet, Drive item, or a chat message, which includes that medical information, then it will automatically be labeled as restricted. And this is what it looks like. Let's go to this one. So here's a Google Sheet I created earlier. And this sheet is for a teacher who's been arranging a school trip, which has got quite a lot of sensitive data in this sheet. There's student names, there's parent guardian names, phone numbers, but more phone numbers here, passport information, and also health information. So in reality, multiple rules are probably going to prevent the sharing of this sheet. But as you can see here, because we've got health information added in this column, it's automatically applied this restricted label here. And we can test this out. Hopefully, this will work again, just in the way it did in my earlier meeting when I did this earlier. I'm going to copy and paste this information into another Google Sheet, which doesn't already have this label. And if I paste this information in, give it a few moments, hopefully, here we go, it's automatically tagged this sheet now as being restricted because it had these terms listed in it from that word list and that DLP rule I've configured. Okay, so at the moment, it's just applying a label. I can still share this item externally. So in order to stop that from happening, what we can do is then configure a separate DLP rule to say that anything labeled as confidential or restricted by DLP or manually by the user shouldn't be shared outside the school. And we can do that by using this rule here. So this is one I configured earlier. Let's just go through it. So again, I'm applying this to everyone on the domain. I'm just affecting Drive files this time. And under the conditions, I've selected Drive label. And we're looking at the file sensitivity label. And we're looking for items tagged as restricted and as confidential. So then any files which meet those conditions are blocked from external sharing. So a good thing about this is now we're using DLP to automatically tag items, but also users can tag items themselves by simply going to File, Labels, and then selecting from our list of labels. So this lets users self-mark items as being confidential and stop those from being shared. And also we're automating that process too. So sharing a wrong tab then. So just to highlight again, you can tag items yourself by going to File and Labels, and then the label choice pops up over here. One interesting thing you can do with DLP is if you assign a label automatically, you've got the choice of either letting the user modify that or not. Okay, hopefully everyone's still with me so far. So one last thing I wanted to show you is now we've set up some rules and labels, we can use the security dashboard for tracking how those are being applied. So if we now go to Security, Security Center, and Security Dashboard, On the dashboard, if we, let's select, actually, let's look at a different admin console here. Let's go to this one. This one's got a lot more data on it. Let's go back to the security dashboard and scroll down. And the last two dashboards on this page will highlight all the recent DLP actions on our domain. So here we've got DLP incidents and the top policy incidents. So which rules are being triggered the most? If I select view report for DLP incidents, it gives me an overview. And if I go to actions, this will show me which rules are being triggered the most. Also from here, like other reports on the dashboard, I can also launch the investigation tool by selecting this magnifying glass. And this allows me to then delve a bit deeper and see exactly which documents have been triggering those rules and by whom and what action occurred. So let's just let this load. There's quite a lot of data on this domain, so it may take a few moments. The nice thing about when you trigger an investigation from a security dashboard is it fills all of these items in for you, making your search much quicker and efficient. So along here, we can see our recent activity. We can see which rule was triggered. So in this case, health information. We can see what the result of that trigger was. So this rule was applying a drive label and also sending an alert to the alert center. We can see the data source, so it's on Google Drive, it's a document. We can see the document ID and the title. We can see the owner of that document. The trigger, so it's triggered because someone went to share that document. But just to say, any DLP rules, Google will continuously scanning any drive items being added, as you could see earlier. So that's always happening in the background, but it rechecks these things if there's a sharing event occurring. And we can see the detector ID as well, so which precise condition was detected. And in terms of what that would look like for the user, if I did go to share that document, so let's go back to that school trip file here. We've got our label added, but if I go to share this, you can see I've got a warning symbol and a share icon. And if I go to try and add someone new or any existing sharing permissions, you can see here that you get this message that you're not permitted to share outside of the school domain because it's got sensitive content in this message or in this item. So do you make use of the rule log events data source if you're wanting to track how effective your rules are, or if you're investigating any issues there, or just want to see how effective it is? And do you also make use of the security dashboard there as well? Okay, we're almost at the end of this section now. Just wanted to highlight a couple of updates coming to DLP very soon. The first one is around integration with Gmail. So if you remember earlier on, I had to go and configure that in the compliance options in Gmail. In the future, Gmail will be more tightly integrated with the DLP configuration. As you can see in our GIF here, Gmail will be an additional option you can select there. And it means we can just apply our DLP rules a lot more efficiently and just configure those in one place, which is a really nice addition. The more interesting update here is AI is coming to DLP. Effectively, with this update, which is currently in, I think, a closed beta, with this update, you will be able to have your own AI model, which can be trained on your data and back model and can be used to automatically apply labels to your documents to make sure that they're labeled properly. So this is going to be a step above what's available already for labeling things automatically. It'll improve accuracy. I think if you're interested in trying this out for yourself, do apply to be on the Google Workspace for Education pilot program, and specifically the AI track within that, which gives you early access to some of these new features which are coming. So that's everything I wanted to share on DLP.